is irresponsible consumerism. There are a lot of Americans, I think, and I know some, my friends do this, rather than go to the grocery store and stock up for what they need that week, they order DoorDash or Uber Eats and pay massive premiums for convenience and then say, you know what, I'm going to skip the next meal because I can't afford it. There are decisions that we make in the name of convenience.
That's quite an argument.
Wow.
That is quite an argument.
But there's something to it.
I have always said that MAGA are out of touch with reality, and this clip is going to confirm it even more. In this clip, we are going to see a maggot blame the American people for why the cost of living crisis is just through the roof. He's literally blaming people because of DoorDash and because of having food ordered to their door as opposed to cooking meals at home. You can't make this up. Let's watch the clip in full, give you guys my thoughts towards the end.
An alarming report on the affordability crisis that's being seen as an indictment of Donald Trump's so-called golden age. New research from the New York Fed shows that there's been a remarkable increase in Americans struggling to put food on the table, and many are now resorting to skipping meals altogether. The report finds a greater share of Americans have become food insecure compared to the early months of the pandemic. Low-income Americans are being forced to dip into their savings to cover expenses. More children are missing or skipping meals compared to 2020, and families need food donations or federal assistance to get by. Now, this week, as the war in Iran drags on with Congress on a recess, Republican Congressman Mike Flood of Nebraska got an earful from his constituents.
You're making everything unaffordable. We can't afford gas. We can't afford health care. We can't afford things here in Norfolk while you guys are lining your pockets within the presidency, within Congress. What are you guys going to do to regulate this and actually follow laws? What is Congress going to do?
It's really extraordinary to me to hear that compared to 2020, this is like pandemic era, that, well,
It's
no.
February 2020.
Yeah, that's the pandemic. Like the whole country shut down in 2020. Like that era, compared to that era, there's more food insecurity. That should be a real red flag for policymakers.
It absolutely should be. It's heartbreaking to know that so many Americans feel that they are food insecure and that they can't afford their next meal, that they're skipping meals. And there are a lot of contributing factors. Obviously, cost is one of those. Food deserts is another one. I think politicians are a contributing factor to the sentiment because they're not being honest. From the president to members of Congress are not being honest about what they can and cannot do to tackle affordability. There are things Congress can do. You would know it better than anyone at this table, former member of Congress. And there are things they can't do. But the campaign trail is littered with promise after promise that politicians cannot keep, which causes a lot of this anxiety. Another thing that I would throw into the equation is, and I know this is anecdotal, but I think it's part of it, is irresponsible consumerism. There are a lot of Americans, I think, and I know some, my friends do this, rather than go to the grocery store and stock up for what they need that week, they order DoorDash or Uber Eats and pay massive premiums for convenience and then say, you know what, I'm going to skip the next meal because I can't afford it. There are decisions that we make in the name of convenience.
That's quite an argument.
Wow.
That is quite an argument.
But there's something to it. I think there is something to it. I think a lot of people
You said
like
my
the convenience.
friends, who I'm assuming are probably fairly educated,
Using it as an example.
Your
but
friends
I think
are
there
not
are
the friends we're talking about when we're discussing the real life
I think there are
issues that
millions
people
of
are
Americans
facing.
who make that choice because it's convenient to have something delivered because they're busy. And it costs a lot more than possibly doing something that we never learned how to cook.
I don't want us to get, I don't want us to go down too far in that rabbit hole because we do know that grocery prices, not DoorDash prices, grocery prices
are out of control,
are going up. So the people who are getting out of their houses, going to the grocery store, buying food, cooking it in their homes, that is also going up. I do want to play Kevin Hassett. He's an economic advisor to the president. He has been putting his foot in his mouth, proverbially, for the last few months. Here's what he said recently, once again, about the state of the economy.
I think that we should see very quickly energy prices, gas prices go back to where they should be. And the thing that I've seen when I look at credit card data and other things that I can get for the private sector is that while people have been spending more money at gas stations, they've been spending more money at everything else, which means that they're still very, very optimistic about the state of the economy.
Maybe this is where Pete's theory and the rest of this converges, but I'm sorry, but like, it seems to me that people spending more money on everything is not something to be smiling about.
Yeah, I have a very hard time making sense out of what you were just laying out there, especially when I consider what the administration spent most of last year doing, which was waging wars on essentially the price level by trying to increase the tariffs across the globe. That has a direct implication on the cost that consumers are going to pay for just about everything. Even the president himself was assuring us, well, yeah, there may be a little pain for a little while. That is not a DoorDash problem. That's not me not knowing how to cook a meal for myself at home. These are the direct implications of policy decisions. And the reality is that the pain would have been a great deal worse but for setbacks that he had because of some complications he encountered in the courts and amongst a few, unfortunately, precious few members of his own party who objected to these ruinous policies.
Yeah, it also doesn't help that when you have Speaker Mike Johnson saying that Congress can't survive on $174,000 a year. When you have Trump saying, I don't care about
How many people do you know that have to have two homes?
What?
Okay.
I mean,
Guys,
but
that's a whole other.
There is a very good argument to having a better Congress.
But my point is that the people in those positions that are telling people who are experiencing the real pain of their decisions that, oh, you're being just irresponsible, or we can't survive on $174,000 a year, or a president that has told people to just suck it up and deal with the pain, or I don't care about the American finances. When you have to put food on the table, that's the last thing you want to hear. And especially when you see the massive amount of money we're spending on a war that no one wanted. At the end of the day, it's one thing if it's COVID. It's one thing if it's something that you really can't control. These are all self-inflicted decisions that have cost the American people. And by them continuing to lie and say, well, the stock market is doing great. I remember during Biden's administration, when the Democrats tried to run that same game, they got destroyed by the Republicans. And now all of a sudden, y'all trying to run it back. So I don't really get this very wide gap and why people don't believe that it is really tough out here for a lot of people, especially after you've leveled SNAP and you've leveled Medicare.
Exactly. I think people have noticed here three different arguments to explain what's going on. One is the tariffs. The other is the war in Iran and the gas prices up to $4.50. And the third is the cuts to SNAP benefits and the quote-unquote big, beautiful bill. Those are policy decisions that have an impact on ordinary Americans. And we have this K-shaped economy now where the people at the top are doing really well, and the people at the bottom aren't doing so well. So I think the big problem, though, with all of this is that Trump has a history of saying two different things about affordability. One day he thinks it's a concern, the other day it's a Democratic plot. But their big problem is that he's building this big UFC stadium. He's building fixing up the reflecting pool and spending $1 billion for a ballroom. He's doing all these different things that have nothing to do with the concerns of ordinary Americans. And it shows a rich old white guy who's out of touch.
But I mean, that was something that that Pete was talking about, of like the politicians saying both things, right? When Donald Trump was out of power, it was everything is terrible. The world is coming to a close. America's a hellhole. Get into office. Everything's fantastic. When Joe Biden was in office, it's like, listen, don't believe your lying eyes. Everything is fantastic. And then get out of office and, oh, my God, look at how terrible things are. Right. This is the challenge with trying to separate fact from fiction, with trying to separate actual economic indicators from feeling. The divergence between where economic sentiment should be based on where our unemployment rate is, based on where the markets are, based on where all like lower quartile job growth, that versus the sentiment. I mean, we have lower sentiment in terms of like the direction of the economy and overall consumer belief that things will get better, lower than when the unemployment rate was double what it is and when inflation was at 12%.
I agree with you, but you're missing one point, though. You're missing one point, though. One of the people who's chiefly responsible for contributing to the distrust of government data is Donald Trump. He spent years discrediting the government data under the Obama administration and under the Biden administration. He spent years trying to discredit what government does in general. So people have a reason not to believe what the government data says. They're more concerned about their personal situations than what the government data is telling them.
All right, next for us, Jill Biden says that she...
So, consistently have said it for such a long time. These people, and when you listen to when they talk, this is the reason as to why, unless you're a millionaire, a billionaire, or someone who makes high multiple six figures, you have absolutely no reason whatsoever to be voting for the likes of a Donald Trump. Hell, you could even say the Republican Party if you really wanted to go that far. You have no reason to be doing it whatsoever, because these people are so far removed from reality that listen to the comments that they make. A Republican really sat on television and had the gall to say that people are struggling in this economy because they're ordering DoorDash and Uber Eats. Like, how far removed from reality can you be? How out of touch can you be as an individual? But that's the reality. Mike Johnson saying that people are struggling on, politicians are struggling on a six-figure salary. Like, what are you even thinking? Donald Trump, all the things that it is that he says, affordability is a hoax made by Democrats. Of course, these people are going to think like that. I'm not even sure what the individual's name is. Ken, he's always on Ken something, I think. When he's on Fox saying, credit card use is up, but people are spending more money elsewhere. Like, these people don't know nothing about living a normal life. They don't. And that's the reason as to why they can't relate to what it is that the average American is going through. They can't. Because they're millionaires, they're billionaires, they don't go to the grocery store. They're probably not filling up their own vehicles. They're having staff do that for them. They cannot relate to what's happening and to what's going on. So the fact that it is that a Republican, let's really think about that. Even if that's what he was thinking, he thought it was a good idea to sit on national television. Well, you can call it international because I've seen it and I live here in the UK. He thought it was a good idea to sit on television and say something that was going to be shown all around the world, blaming people struggling to live on Uber Eats and DoorDash. This is the reason why voting for these people never, ever works. And it just makes no sense. Absolutely embarrassing behavior. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. Do the usual. Give the video a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. And I'll see you guys in the next one.